Minister at the time, Boris Johnson, wanted to get all the MPs around for parties, so their hands were all dipped in the blood.
I'm at the Better Way conference today with Andrew Bridgen, whose life has been turned upside down, I would imagine, from everything we've seen over the recent months and years, simply for his views. In one hand, you've become a folklore hero to many who have been seeking someone to take the mantle in the political realm, and yet abandoned by many of your long-standing colleagues. How are you feeling right now and under this crazy?
It's been a great reception at the conference. My speech was well received. I'm in great company. You've heard some inspirational speeches today and over the last few days. But the grim reality is, when I stood up in Parliament to say what I believe is the truth, and I think history will be very kind to me, and what I've said, I hope it's fast enough to save a lot of lives. I've lost a lot of friends in Parliament. Were they real friends? I don't know. I've made a lot of new friends. I was disappointed that when I was effectively announced I was thrown out of the Conservative Party forever, that none of the colleagues I have in Parliament texted or contacted me, and the only politician who did within an hour was Robert Kennedy Jr., the presidential candidate from the US. It's a bit of a lonely place in Parliament, but it's like a dual universe. So there's 4,000 real people who work in Parliament, the cooks, the cleaners, the security guards. 75-80% of those know what's going on. They know it's a cover-up. And surely, because of that, my colleagues must really know. And I think what really annoys them, every time I get to speak, they're going to be getting emails from their constituents, which they're going to bat away, which ultimately puts them on the wrong side of history, and they know it.
It's fascinating. Now, one of the most shocking things I saw, you were standing to raise some points in Parliament, and I believe it was the whip or one of the key members of the benches was ushering people out to not even give you an audience. I've never seen anything like it.
I think that was Andrew Mitchell, who's actually the minister in charge of the WHO and changes to the International Health Agreement.
Funny that. Okay. The point for me is we are entrusting MPs and the parliamentarians to be our public figures.
They can leave the chamber and pretend they haven't heard, but ultimately that means my speech goes down in Hansard. A very common ploy now is that when I do eventually get a debate scheduled, they put a minister up who's not the minister with that responsibility, so they've got the perfect excuse not to answer any of my questions, and then they either delay for 6 months answering the questions I've posed, or in some cases I never get an answer at all, in which case the debate really didn't take place. But ultimately, when I put them on social media, and they get 20, 30 million views around the world, even if the mainstream media don't cover it, it's getting out there.
Absolutely.
And that's great news.
Absolutely, and I hope we can help that as well. Now, what is the official reason that the party said that they were relinquishing your position?
It was for a tweet that went out in my name, saying that the vaccine rollout was the biggest crime against humanity since the Holocaust, and it was tagged on to a scientific paper talking about the vaccine harms from the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And they said that was abhorrent, and that I had compared that to the 6 million people exterminated by the Nazis, and the party found that, and the public found that abhorrent. Well, that's not been the response in my inbox. I've had huge support from the Jewish community, and indeed many relatives of Holocaust survivors have said this is already worse than the Holocaust.
Did you have the opportunity to state your case?
Only written, and the fact is that I took the rap for a member of my staff. It was my tweet, but it went for moderation and approval to my association chairman of the Conservative Party in North West Leicestershire, and he moderated it, approved it, and he posted it on Twitter. I've never actually had the codes myself in all the years I've been an MP. They're always moderated. And what's disappointing is that he didn't have the guts to stand up and say, I approve that tweet and I actually posted it. But there you go. That's rough justice.
Irrespective of that point, the data around the vaccine injuries that you've so strongly presented.
Yeah, well, the committee that found that I should be expelled from the party, it was made up of a failed parliamentary candidate for Shropshire North, who's probably looking for a seat, and two lawyers. I gave them, I think, 34 or 36 scientific papers to back up my claims around the vaccine, and they said they didn't like my science. I then put a complaint in saying, well, what's your qualifications in science to say you don't like my science, and how on earth can your decision be objective when there's only three of you, and my inbox says that over 99% of the public are with me. I don't know how they managed to suspend me within an hour of my tweet, because I sent that 3 times to central office of the Conservative Party. I could never get them to acknowledge they've even received it.
Now I want to take a step back a little bit, because you've been relentless in your pursuit of justice and truth here. But could you walk us back to the very first time where you felt compelled to take this on? Because surely you must...
December 2021, I'd been privileged to be given a lot of information about evidence that was coming out about the Omicron variant from South Africa. I read all the papers. I was very impressed with the science. I knew then that the government were thinking about more lockdowns for that Christmas. I mysteriously got an invite for a big drinks party at number 10 the first week in December. I wrote back to the Prime Minister saying, look, I think I'm hearing that you're looking at restrictions on the freedoms of my constituents over Christmas, which I will object to and I will vote against. So I don't think it's right for me to come for a drinks party at number 10 if you're going to, in a week or so's time, be taking these freedoms off my constituents, which I don't approve of and don't think are necessary. If it's that serious, then we shouldn't be having drinks parties. They then invited me to another party the week after, by which time they'd announced they wanted a plan B for over Christmas and restrictions. So I again wrote back and said, that would be completely inappropriate now. You've announced you want restrictions on my constituents' freedoms for me to come and have a party at number 10. And then, of course, Partygate broke, and I understood why the Prime Minister at the time, Boris Johnson, wanted to get all the MPs around for parties. So their hands were all dipped in the blood, but I didn't fall for that one. And when we had the debate just before the Christmas recess, I voted against the mandates, the masks, the restrictions. I voted 4 times against the government. I spoke out in that debate, and that's on the record. And I finished my remarks off in the chamber by saying that in effect, the only real pandemic that's been going around the world and affecting the UK is a pandemic of fear, and it's got to stop, because it was clear it was being perpetrated by the government against the people.
It's often said that it's a courageous act to tell the truth, but was there a time, because I agree with you, the evidence is compelling, but was there a time where could you predict what has followed, to the degree in which you've been treated?
No, I didn't. I was working for a long time. A lot of things over the last 13 years I've not liked, I've not supported, but the government have done. And I've always thought, well, looking at the characters running the government, supposedly, they just weren't bright enough to run a conspiracy. So it'd have to be a cock-up, because they were far too incompetent to run a conspiracy properly. And then when you realise that it's not their conspiracy, they're only the puppets of someone else, then it all drops into place. But of course, no, I thought there are not many scientists in Parliament, and they'd made a lot of mistakes along the way, so it was all right for me to speak out, and I thought they'd accept the science I was giving them. But from that moment on, the pushback has been absolutely immense.
There's a lot of conversation about the impact of public-private partnerships and corruption through funding, and
Yeah, well, all the regulators, all our regulators have been corrupted. Financial regulators have been corrupted by the financial institutions. Pharmaceutical and medical regulators have been corrupted by those industries. That is a pattern I'm seeing completely across government, and it's all got to change.
Are you able to see those dots looking back now to earlier in your career? Was there early evidence? Is this a slow creep? Have you seen this?
Oh, I think it's been a creep, but this has been going on. That explains the mysterious things that were happening many years ago, which really didn't make sense and certainly weren't conservative. It's all fairly clear now.
And coming here today to the Better Way conference and over the course of this weekend, what was your driving force? What did you really want to share here this weekend? You had a rapturous reception.
Yeah, and it's good for my morale. I think it's good for spreading the word. I've done about 5 interviews, which will again go out, and the thing is that every time someone, for the use of a better word, wakes up and realises what's been going on around the vaccines, once their eyes are open to that, they can see other things that have not been right. And it doesn't matter what the government or the opposition or anyone in Parliament does. There's no leaflet they're going to put out that's going to put them back to sleep again. So every conversion is a good conversion. I think we have to be very careful with people who don't accept what's happened or our version of what's happened. You can take someone to church, you can make them listen to a sermon, but you can't make them believe in God. They have to do that in their own time, and that's how we've got to be gentle with the people who and actually feel sorry for the people who aren't aware of what's being done to them. But I think we are now moving to a sort of critical mass. It takes an amount of time to get from 5% of the population to 10. We're well over that now. So if from 10 to 20, same amount of time, but from 20 to 40 will only be the same amount of time. And I'm finding it's accelerating very, very quickly now.
What do you think some of the possible pathways to justice are from here?
Well, to start with, we need to find out and hold to account the people who manufactured and paid for and authorised COVID-19 to be created with a gain of function, whether that's when we need a court of law to find out who that, and holding those people criminally to account is surely going to deter other people from taking the same actions which plunge the whole world into economic and health despair. So it's a huge crime against humanity, and there should be very severe sanctions against it. But I mean, if it is that, as it appears, that politicians and advisors around the world have conspired against the people, I mean, that is an extremely serious crime. And if those people aren't held to account, people who knew what was being done and that it was wrong, I don't know how the public, and this isn't just the UK public, but across the world, are going to have any confidence in those institutions, scientists, the medical profession, and politicians, unless those people are held to account. And there will have to be severe sanctions to rebuild that trust. And also, this must never happen again, and any politician or person in a privileged position where they have that sort of power over health and science, they've got to know that in the future, if they ever think about trying this again, there's going to, what the sanctions are to deter them.
Absolutely. Now, you said previously,
but it's going to have to be some sort of devolved organisation, so that this centralisation has led to people having the ability to make these appalling decisions and take a total control. That can never be allowed to happen again.
Absolutely. And now, you said when all of this was unfolding, the only support you really had from the political realm was from presidential candidate Robert Kennedy Jr. Now, do you also foresee political solutions to this problem? Do you see, for many of the public and certainly the participants here, people are looking for change when it comes to politics because they feel let down. For many people, it's like they've had the rug pulled from under them. They trust the institutions.
Yeah, and
it's been lost.
To be fair, about 25, 30 MPs have been to me privately over the last 6 months and said, you are right on the vaccines, there's something seriously wrong, keep going. But that's a long way from them standing up next to me in the chamber and supporting me. But that is growing. I think a lot of them know. Some of them are compromised, surely. and some, I think the forces that were against are so powerful that we are actually a forlorn hope, and they don't want to risk their careers if they don't think we're going to win. Well, I mean, no one ever knows they're going to win, and certainly, I guarantee, if you don't try, you won't win. So we need to get over that. But I mean, ultimately, the truth is the truth, and it will come out. Unofficially, the government told me, they want 20 years. And I said that was unacceptable. I'm not accepting 20-year cover-up and the deaths and the injuries that will continue. And also, by not accepting we've made a mistake, we're not sorting out the problems that we should be about the vaccine harms now, and people could be saved.
Indeed. You mentioned some of the politicians being compromised. In what ways?
I think well, it's carrot and stick. I mean, they came to me and tried to offer me anything I wanted, which I refused, and after that, a lot of very bad things started happening in my personal and public life. So it's carrot and stick. And also, I mean, what's been done to me over the last couple of years is interesting. That, I mean, 75% of that is to deter the others from speaking out, and it's been pretty successful. I mean, when they threw me out of the Conservative Party, I had 4 members of staff. I had 2 men who'd worked for me for one for a couple of years, one for 17 years before I was even a candidate. When I was a candidate, full time, and 2 ladies who were part time. The 2 chaps quit, and when I spoke to them, they said they were stopping with the Conservative Party because they knew everything I'd said was true. They'd seen all the science. They are absolutely convinced of it. But we've also seen what the party's done to you and your family in the last 2 years, and we don't want it done to us. I mean, that's pretty damning of the state of politics in the UK in 2023.
Yeah, it's often said that movements are formed when there's a courageous first leader and then a courageous first follower. And we've certainly seen that within the scientific community, the health community, and certainly within the activist community. And we're starting to see that a little bit in pockets in the political realm.
I'm going over to Europe at the end of the month to meet with Christine Anderson. And I think there is strength in numbers, and also it encourages others to speak out. I've met today with a representative of a Dutch MP, trying to get them to come to Brussels at the same time. So at least we're pooling our information, and we're shoring each other up morally and politically. And this isn't about right and left anymore of politics. It's about right and wrong of politics and the very future of humanity and how we want our society to be. The next 12 months are going to be absolutely crucial. Either all the chips are in the table now, the cards have been dealt. Either we end up with WHO through digital ID, digital currency, amendments to international health regs, in which case people's lives are going to change dramatically. It's not going to be democracy, that's going to be dictatorship and tyranny, quite honestly. Or they lose, in which case then we can have a great reset of our own and bring back democratic accountability and what democracy really is. Demos is the people, and Kratos is power, power to the people.
Yes, and this conference here has looked at almost every dimension of the problem, from the big picture to the corruption to the centralization. And for someone new to this topic, they're seeing it for the first time. Mind-blowing. So complex.
Mind-blowing.
Thinking about some of your former constituents, the regular people who perhaps haven't been paying attention, or if they have, it's purely through the mainstream media. What would be your opening?
I would ask them to listen to what I'm saying about the vaccine and the vaccine harms. Look at my qualifications in science. Look at the papers I'm quoting. Those of us on this side of the argument have, in effect, lost everything for what we believe to be the truth. The side that are arguing against us are all vested interests, huge financial vested interests. I've served the people of North West Leicestershire for 13 years as your MP. I haven't lied to you. We've prospered under my leadership as your Member of Parliament. Why would I mislead you now? I'm trying to protect you, and that is at some considerable cost to me, but it's still the right thing to do. And when we get to the next election, if it's a year or so, that suits me fine. There'll be every day there's more information that supports my view around the vaccines and the vaccine harms. There isn't going to be any science coming out saying that they are actually safe and effective after all. And I've stood for you, and I've stood to protect you and your families. and I hope that you'll turn out and support me when the next general election comes. But if you don't, it's democracy, and that's how it goes.
In the face of everything that you've taken on, you've shown real resilience, you've shown courage, despite the challenges, I'm sure, in the quiet evenings when you're reflecting on the courses of the day, there's probably moments when you question what on earth is happening here. Undoubtedly, this will inspire others. But what is driving you forward now? You've mentioned some things that are coming up in the near future. What's driving you?
Well, I'm championing the families, concerned relatives of people who they believe lives were ended prematurely with the use of midazolam and morphine. We've got a big meeting in Parliament organised for the 14th of June. That's going to be very interesting. And those people are so grateful because they've been ignored, and they're now going to have a voice and a platform. And I'm hoping that we can film it. We'll ask permission from the House to film that private meeting. And I think there's a lot of people going to resonate with that message and have concerns.
What can citizens at home now do in a political sense? How can they help this process?
Well, I know how much it upsets my colleagues across the House every time I speak out, whether that's in the chamber or on social media, because they then get emails from their constituents asking the questions. And if they denounce me and denounce what I'm saying, I mean, ultimately, they do know they'll be putting themselves on the wrong side of history on the record. And they hate doing that, and that's why they'd rather I just shut up. So I would encourage everyone who listens to that, in whatever country that is, to bombard their elected representatives at all levels, get all their friends who are thinking the same things and all their relatives to do so, and show that the voice of the people will be heard. And then remember that all of us as elected politicians, we work for you. We are your servants. We're not your masters. We work for you. Don't be embarrassed to contact them and to tell them what you think and ask them the questions, because this is about what society we want to live in, and it's about the health and security of every individual on this planet.
Absolutely. Incredible. Andrew, thank you so much for everything you're doing.
It's a pleasure.
Incredible work. Please do share this interview. I'm sure as you've seen, facing incredible censorship, conversations like this must reach the people. So whatever it takes, please hit the share button, tag in the comments. Let's help get this message out there. Let's support those who are fighting for justice. Thank you so much to Andrew, and thank you to our audience at home.